Aloha and welcome to all of you. Thank you for joining. This is our third town hall meeting, and this one is focused on the North Shore with a particular focus on Waialua, because we're focused on all the priority areas across the state. There are 14 of them, and so Waialua is one of those. So we'll be doing town halls eventually in all those priority areas. And those are where they have the most cesspools, and we'll talk more about that. But we always like to start with this opening slide, inject a little humor into the conversation, because I like to say that cesspools anywhere near the coast or streams are like toilets on the beach. And so this is in Waimanalo, where we held our last town hall meeting. And this was a fun shoot. People were very perplexed of why we had toilets on the beach, but it was fun. And so now we will turn it over to, we're very fortunate to have Jenny Yagadich, who's going to do an opening Oli for us to kind of set the tone and remind us why we're all here, to protect the land and this beautiful part of our island home. So I'll turn it over to you, Jenny. Mahalo.
Mahalo nui. E ala e kahiki ku, e ala e kahiki moe, e ala ho'i au iki mai oi. Uala kalani, uala ka honua, uala ka uka, uala ke kai. A kahikala o ke aloha, I hiki mai ai. Aloha mai kako.
Aloha. Mahalo.
Thank you, Jenny, so much. And thanks everyone for being here tonight. My name is Jackie Orsa, and I work as WAI's operations coordinator. And I just want to introduce the rest of our team. You all know Stuart Coleman, he's our executive director. Christina Comfort is our program manager. Joaquin Schneider is our project coordinator. And John Anner is our managing director. And just to give everybody a little more background on WAI and what we do, our mission is to protect water quality, reduce sewage pollution, and restore healthy watersheds by providing innovative, affordable, and eco-friendly solutions to waste and wastewater management for all people. And we do this by helping our homeowners and communities manage the difficult process of upgrading cesspools and failing septic systems across the state to new systems that are more affordable, efficient, and better for the environment. We also have, we're kind of split in 5 different pillars. So we have our innovative technology, our financial resources pillar, policy and advocacy, outreach and education, and pilot projects. And we'll kind of touch on all of those this evening. I also want to welcome some VIP guests that we have here tonight. So I want to thank Representative Lauren Matsumoto for being here, Senator Gil Riviere. And after our presentation, we'll have a Q&A panel. And on our panel tonight, we have Dr. Roger Babcock, who's the Director of Department of Environmental Services for City and County of Honolulu, and also Professor UH Manoa. We also have Ryan Ward, who is a licensed engineer and contractor at Alexander Pacific and Luna Environmental. So thank you all for being here. And with that, I think I'm going to pass it over to Senator Riviere for a brief intro.
Thank you. I want to say mahalo to everybody who took time to tune in tonight and log into this. It's an important issue. These guys are working hard. The WAI group are really committed to trying to find solutions to work through a really intractable problem. Presently, there's 88,000 cesspools around the state. We're the highest concentration of cesspools, I think, in the country. And our district, the Senate district, which goes from Kunia Camp to Kaena Point to all the way to Kaneohe, we have the most sensitive and impacted watersheds from the cesspools in the entire state, except Kauai. The entire county of Kauai has more. But other than that, our district has it. And then in our district, Kahaluu and Waialua are the 2 most severe heavily impacted areas with cesspools. It's going to be difficult to convert everybody, but we have only 28 years left to do that. All cesspools will be obsolete in the year 2050. So we've got 28 years to get everybody upgraded one way or another. There are working groups trying to come up with menus and options, financing schemes, alternatives, incentives. And so I'm very interested. This is the second one of these I've participated in. And I just want to welcome you all and thank you for coming. And I want to say mahalo to the WAI team for having this information for us tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. And now we'll turn to Representative Matsumoto.
I apologize. We're having a meltdown at our house. I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, but this issue is so important that I wanted to make sure that we addressed it. So here tonight, so thank you, and please bear with me. But like Senator Riviere said, it's really important, especially for Waialua, where does have the highest concentration. I'm going to leave a lot of the time from the scientific facts to the experts, but I did want to acknowledge all of the health and environmental impacts that cesspools do create. And I think one of the most important things is we do have a lot of different bills and things moving through the legislature in regards to this issue. And so I wanted to quickly go through just some of the important things. So I know they're going to go through several of the House proposals. There's just a few others that are also going through the legislature. And this is just to note that there's a lot of movement on this issue and there's a lot of people looking into it. But what's most important is that you get involved. And I always say this as a legislator, I love hearing from the community and it's so important to have your testimony. And so what my office has done is we have put together these PDFs with legislative instructions. And so the way to get to these instructions is to go to repmatsumoto.com. And once you get to the website, and we will put repmatsumoto.com into the chat, but once you get there, scroll down and there's a button that says legislative instructions. And we've put together PDFs to make it really easy for you to get involved. And so it's how to register for the Capitol website, how to sign up for measure tracking. So if you really find the issue that's important to you, make sure you sign up for that measure tracking. It will email you if the bill is going to have a hearing, how to write testimony, and also how to submit testimony, especially because now we're doing things with Zoom. And so please go to the website to download those PDFs. So these four, just to make it a little less scary to testify at the Capitol and to get involved. And last but not least, I just wanted to encourage everybody, we do have an e-newsletter that we sent out to the entire district. So to go on the website and sign up for that e-newsletter. I know Senator Riviere has a newsletter that goes out as well. And so we'll be pushing out information as these things go through, but just wanted to let you know about all of that because it's so important to get involved as these issues move through the legislature. So thank you again for everybody from WAI who came here tonight and just for all of you from the community as well.
Thank you so much, Rep. Matsumoto. We really appreciate that and echo what you're saying, how important it is to get involved. And Hawaii has one of the best kind of online services in the country in terms of getting involved with your legislature. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you all very much. We really appreciate everybody who is here to attend this town hall. And the first interactive part of 2 is about to start. This is a Zoom poll, so you don't have to go to any website. I am just going to launch this poll right here. It should appear on your screens right now. And it's 2 questions total. It's completely anonymous. And I would like to ask you to please read these. I'm going to read them out as well and vote so that we can get your input as well. The first question is, do you think that cesspools pose a problem in Hawaii? Yes, no, not sure. You can select one of those answers. And the second question is, complete the sentence. I've heard that. You can choose multiple here if you want. First one is, sewer will come to Wailua and take care of my cesspool. I do not have to worry about my cesspool until 2050. I need to convert my cesspool to a better system, or none of the above. And I see 11 of 49 attendees are already there. 20 almost, very good. Thank you all so much for participating, and we'll give it a little bit so that everybody can vote. And again, this is completely anonymous. Yeah, 26 out of 49, awesome, you guys rock.
Mhm. This is our way of just getting a sense, taking a pulse of the community and finding, where folks stand on this issue. And then
That's right.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll give it 10 more seconds. Right now we have about 33 out of 49 people that have participated. That's really good, 2/3. All right, and 3, 2, 1. Oh, still people doing it? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, okay, I'll end it now. And I will share the results that should appear on your screen right now. For question 1, do you think that cesspools pose a problem? We have 67% yes, 11% no, 22% not sure. And for question 2, complete the sentence. I've heard that sewer will come to Wailua. Take care of my cesspool is 8%. I don't have to worry about my cesspool, 19% until 2050, that is. And I need to convert my cesspool to a better system, 72%, none of the above, 8%. Thank you all so much. And this was the appetizer for the second poll that will come towards the end of this presentation. So thank you all very much. And we will move on to the next slide that luckily is also me. So that's an easy transition. I want to outline to you all the difference between a cesspool and septic tank. The difference is that cesspools are just a hole in the ground where all the wastewater from a house goes to, from bathroom, kitchen, anything, shower, laundry, goes straight into the hole. There's no treatment occurring. It's only for disposal, and it goes straight into the surrounding soil, and oftentimes the groundwater is not far from there. So these pathogens and the nutrients travel directly into our groundwater, into the aquifers, open bodies of water, and have the potential for a lot of contamination there. And when people say septic, they usually mean a septic tank. And you can see an image here on the right. A septic tank is contained, and it has an inlet pipe and an outlet pipe. There's some treatment happening in there via gravity settling, but it does not provide any disposal. So a typical septic system consists of a septic tank and something for disposal, such as a leach field or a seepage pit. And while the septic tanks do provide some level of treatment, it is not a high level of treatment. It's the most basic step up from a cesspool, essentially. And I'll pass it over to Stuart, I believe.
Thank you, Yoko. And just kind of following up on Rep. Matsumoto's kind of overview, the legislative process, I want to give you a little timeline. Hawaii was the last state to ban cesspools when we passed that Act 120 in 2015 by several decades. Just so you know, we were a little behind the times on this one. And then in 2017, we passed Act 125, which mandated that all cesspools be converted by 2050. And then the following year, we passed Act 132, which created the Cesspool Conversion Working Group. And I serve on that with a number of people here. And I want to thank all the people who really were part of this. This was a collective effort across the state. And really, the legislature and the governor's office and many of you helped fight to get these bills passed. In this current session, we're working to pass a number of bills, which we can talk about at the end of the presentation during the Q&A. But two of our top priorities are a cesspool conversion mandate at point of sale of a property. And many states do this, and it's been very successful when there's money on the table and you have such a market like it is now where people are so eager to buy. It's a good time to make sure that cesspools are converted, especially because most with 30-year mortgages, you run up against the 2050 deadline. And so those need to be converted. And then we also have a bill being submitted by Senator Lee, which is a cesspool fee and subsidy bill. So it starts with a very small fee on cesspool owners, kind of, as an equity issue, because most people in the state are either paying sewer fees or they have paid to have their cesspool converted, a good bit of money. So this is a small fee that goes into a fund exclusively for cesspool conversions. The state authorizes the counties to collect these, and then that fund will be used to help low to moderate income homeowners with the cost of conversion. And working with the Hawaii Department of Health, we have basically 4 categories, 3 significant categories that they've determined across the state to identify cesspools. And the top priority is a significant risk to drinking water and public health, and especially for sensitive streams and coastal waters. So in several areas across the state, there are documented impacts to drinking water. And so those are our top priority. And then there are other, in priority 2, there are potential impacts to drinking water. And these are, within the areas of these. And so it hasn't been documented, but it's suspected. And then priority 3 is potential impacts to ecologically sensitive waters. And we'll explain why that, these impact coral reefs and the waters in our fish populations and can lead to harmful algal blooms and such. The 4th category, we're in the process of eliminating in the cesspool conversion working group. These were ones that we weren't sure where they fit in these top priority areas, but those are being identified now and will be put into these different categories. And then this is just a snapshot of Oahu, where you can see every coastline is affected, and in areas you wouldn't think there would be a lot of cesspools, we're in town where, there are sewer lines, there are still remnants of cesspools, so that we have a lot of work to do across the island, across the state. And as you can see, Waialua is one of the 5 priority areas across the state that are listed. Kahalu is a priority 1, and Waialua is a priority 3. And then we have also Waimanalo, Diamond Head, and Eva. And then for North Shore cesspools, we have this because, it's a rural area. And so there was just no planning, to have a centralized sewer system with lines going out to all these areas. So individual wastewater systems were created. We do have some small wastewater treatment plants in a few areas, and those 4 areas for specific communities, but all the rest are on cesspools. And as you can see, they're very close to the coastal waters and to sensitive streams and such. So Waialua, as I mentioned, is a priority 3. There are 1,080 cesspools in this area that discharge 750,000 gallons per day of untreated sewage into our groundwater and coastal water. So it's very significant. You can see the large clusters there. Pupukea is not a priority area, just responding to someone in the chat, but it is an area that we know that there are problems, which we'll talk about later with water quality.
I'll take over for a bit to talk about water quality. Thank you, Stuart. So cesspools discharge raw wastewater into the environment. So this has a lot of potential impacts for both public health and environmental health. On the public health side, when cesspool pollution gets into the groundwater and into the drinking water aquifer, you can see contaminants in well water in some areas of Hawaii. This can be in the form of fecal indicator bacteria counts that are observed in well water. And we're also really concerned about high nitrate levels in drinking water. And there is an action limit at the state level where they do monitor your drinking water for nitrate, but there are new studies coming out that are showing at levels well below the action limits. There are correlations with colorectal cancer and some potential correlations with bladder cancer from long-term exposure to drinking water contaminated with moderate levels of nitrates. There are also pathogens that exist in the wastewater. So when wastewater enters surface waters like streams or the ocean and people interact with those waters, they can encounter pathogens that can make you sick. It can give you skin infections, gastrointestinal infections. And that is something that, you know, of course, we all want to avoid for ourselves and our families. And finally, there are contaminants of emerging concern. And this is actually for both the public health and environmental side. And these are chemical contaminants that are becoming more concerning as we're learning more about them as they persist in the environment. So these are things that we're still learning about, but are toxins that are found in wastewater and can be harmful. On the environmental side, our coral reefs are really important here in Hawaii for many reasons, from fishing and cultural resources to just the beauty of snorkeling and enjoying the reefs and creating the surf and protecting our coastlines. And the additional nutrients that enter into our coastal ocean from cesspool pollution encourage invasive algae overgrowth. And this basically means that the coral reef is going to have a harder time competing with that invasive algae, and it ultimately will degrade the ecosystem and make it less diverse. It will support less fish, and it won't be the beautiful coral reef that we all love to enjoy. The sewage pollution also has other toxins that can lead to increased rates of coral disease and overall reduced coral cover. So I'm going to go through a few different types of water quality data that we have from the North Shore. One thing to keep in mind is that the North Shore has lots of different types of coastal regions, right? There are areas that are really exposed to high wave action, like on the beach by Ehukai. There's also areas that are embayments that don't have a lot of water flushing through as quickly. So those, those different types of physical ocean environments definitely make a difference on detecting these types of inputs into the system. So first, Surfrider Foundation's Blue Water Task Force program does sample at 4 sites on the North Shore. We sample every 2 weeks, and we're looking for fecal indicator bacteria. So the indicator bacteria aren't necessarily responsible for disease, but they are found in sewage. They're easy to identify, and they are used by the EPA and the Clean Water Act to identify sewage pollution. So we are looking for a bacteria called Enterococcus, and this originates in the intestines of warm-blooded animals. So of course that includes humans. And of course, this also should be interpreted with caution because it could come from things like invasive animals in the watershed, and it can also be found in tropical soil, but it definitely is found in sewage pollution as well. So these are our 4 sites that we're currently sampling. And next slide, please. I'm just going to highlight 2 of them, which is Chocolates by the Honolulu Bridge in Haleiwa and Sharks Cove Tide Pools. And this red line, the red dotted line going across, is the action limit for the high limit of Enterococcus concentration. So if the Department of Health was monitoring these sites and found a concentration of Enterococcus bacteria that was this high, they would have to close the beach and do more testing to make sure that it's safe before they reopen it. Since this is just a nonprofit citizen science group, we can't close the beach, but we can reach out on Instagram and let you guys know when those sites are experiencing high bacterial counts. So Chocolates, as many of you probably would expect, has high fecal indicator bacteria counts pretty consistently. And in the tide pools, we have spikes of bacteria counts. And that depends a lot on the flushing of the tide pools, depending on the wave action. Next slide, please. There are also a lot of studies on algal tissue. So researchers at the University of Hawaii are able to look at different types of algae in the coastal ocean and look at the type of nitrate or nitrogen that is in the algae. And they can do this through an isotopic study, which is a pretty fancy scientific method. It's really cool because it basically allows you to track the source of where the nitrogen came from. So you can see in this map, all the red areas are areas with high densities of cesspools, and then all of the shapes that are orange and red mean there's a wastewater signature that we could detect in the algae based on their nitrogen source tracking. So you can see this is a problem in Kahana, Hauula, Kahuku, some areas along the North Shore, like around Sunset Beach, and definitely in Waialua, which is a known problem area. Next slide, please. This is some zoomed in data looking at that same algae information. So you can see that the red again indicates wastewater contamination. At Aveo, down in Waialua area, you can see there's high readings of wastewater contamination there based on the algae data. Over here in Haleiwa, on the away from the cesspools, more towards Po'ana Point, it's green. So you can see this is kind of a control area. And then down in Ali'i area, there's a mixed signal. So that means that there's some nitrogen coming from agriculture sources and some from wastewater. Next slide, please. And finally, this map, I want to focus your attention on the streams. This is looking at nitrogen in water. And this group used water samples in the streams and was able to tell where there's cesspool contamination based on nitrogen source tracking. So you can see in both of these streams to the south, there's plenty of evidence for wastewater contamination. And in Honolulu stream, there's wastewater contamination towards the mouth of the stream, but not as much upstream. Next slide, please. There's also another group, the Dulai Laboratory at University of Hawaii, that is looking into taking water samples and looking for wastewater contamination based on pharmaceuticals. So these are things like anti-seizure medications like carbamazepine, caffeine, and ibuprofen. So you can see that, and again, here we are in Haleiwa, Wailua area. There's high levels of anti-seizure medications at many of these sites. And then at the Sharks Cove tide pools, we can see high levels of caffeine and ibuprofen at some of the groundwater seeps. So there is definitely pollution coming in from the Pupukea area to the Sharks Cove tide pools. And also just want to acknowledge Jenny, who offered our opening Oli, works with Malama Pupukea Waimea, and has been collaborating with these scientists in all these studies. So there's lots of really interesting work going on there. So that was a brief overview of what we know about where wastewater contamination is occurring on the North Shore. So as you can see, it's pretty widespread. We are also working with the Department of Aquatic Resources 30 by 30 program. And the 30 by 30 Holomua basically is trying to work to have 30% of the coastlines managed by 2030. So this could be in the form of marine protected areas or fishery managed areas. And we just wanted to give them a shout out because they're an important partner, and it's really important to address these ocean pollution problems or just ocean conservation problems from multiple angles. So DAR is really focused on fisheries management, but then they also know that we need to look at the land-based pollution side of things to do a really holistic management practice. And you can see there are 4 pillars here. So we're really helping them out with protection and restoration and monitoring in terms of land-based pollution. Next slide, and I'll pass to Yoko.
Thank you. The question from the poll earlier, whether municipal sewer could be the answer for all cesspools in Wailua. Want to shed a little more light on that. There is currently one municipal wastewater treatment plant in the Wailua area. It's Pa'ala'akai, which was constructed in 1980, currently over 40 years old. And the treatment capacity is 144,000 gallons per day, and the average daily flow is just over 100,000. So calculating that down for how much more capacity there could be would be for less than 100 homes to be added on. And we heard earlier, Wailua priority area has over 1,000. And also, this is an older treatment plant, older technology, and it's very, very, very unlikely that any more homes will be connected to it anytime soon. In addition to that, gravity sewer, which is usually the sewer method that is used by the municipal government, is often, unfortunately, the most expensive option because it runs right under the road. Construction is super expensive and it takes a long time. And the sewer construction is also very disruptive in terms of traffic that it produces and just how slow it is. So unfortunately, in our professional opinion, gravity sewer on the municipal level is not going to be at least the only answer for Waialua. So then we go on to onsite and look at more other options that are smaller scale. And the first 2 that are mentioned often to us and we get asked about are Okay, septic system. What about that? And what about composting toilets? Okay, so let's go through them. Septic systems consisting of a septic tank and a leach field, that's considered a conventional septic system. They require a lot of land area in order to provide for the dilution factor that's needed. And the nutrients still leach out into the water. The nutrients meaning nitrogen and phosphorus, because they are not removed in a septic tank. It just is not high tech enough. And so those are not a great option, especially not if you're close to water, which Waialua and Haleiwa definitely are. Composting toilets are not encouraged either, because this is mostly a Department of Health stance that the composted waste is still considered hazardous. It's still raw, untreated wastewater. And unless you have somebody, a homeowner that is highly capable and willing to really dig in the dirty stuff, it's not a great solution for everybody. And it's also unsafe if not maintained properly. And the waste, unfortunately, cannot be used in agriculture by current laws in Hawaii. So let's look at other options. And we'll go from the small scale to the community scale. And we'll look at the small scale we'll look at here is the toilet scale, replacing individual toilets. And one of those options, and one of our technology partners here at WAI, is the Norwegian company Cinderella. They make waterless toilets that use incineration to produce ash. They're completely independent from water lines and sewer lines because all the waste is dealt with right in the toilet. We have a couple units already in the ground, and the people that use them are very happy and have ordered more already. There are two versions. One is propane powered. That one's really good for ag land, for example, and off the grid type of situations, maybe replacing a porta potty. And for homes, there is the electric powered one that is really, plugs into a 220 volt outlet and no water required. And that one could also be combined with gray water. We're working on a pilot. And if you have want more information on that, feel free to contact us through our website or via email. Moving up in scale to the household scale, meaning all the wastewater, not just the toilet wastewater, can be dealt with these systems. And they are better than a conventional septic system that I outlined earlier. And we'll go from left to right. We have a type of enhanced septic system called a biofilter, where you still use a septic tank for the primary elemental settlement and basic treatment. And then you go to an enhanced type of leach field that allows for better, stronger bacteria to thrive. That usually uses sand and wood chips. And one of those companies we partner with is Elgin from the mainland. And all these that I'm presenting on this slide provide for nitrogen removal, which is really important if you're discharging close to water. On the bottom, we have a constructed wetland, can also be called a bioreactor garden. And the company, the nonprofit we partner with here is Ridge to Reefs. We're even partnering on a grant that will allow us to provide teaching, training sessions for local engineers and designers to understand how to put these together and make sure they're installed properly. And we're really excited about these because they're a great option as well, using a septic tank and then this type of constructed wetland before discharging through a leach field, and the plants and the bacteria do all the jobs. And then on the top right, we have a more of a mechanical solution that is called an aerobic treatment unit. It's similar to a septic tank, but it infuses air by means of an air pump into the tanks so that the bacteria in there can be supercharged. And this means it uses electricity instead of using the nature-based solution. However, it is very small in footprint. That's the upside to it, and can be very reliable if maintained properly. And the company we partner with on these is FujiClean from Japan. Then we have a very exciting pilot project going on with a local company called WAI Home, similar name. We do partner with them, obviously, but they were founded independent of us. But we love their idea of a aerobic treatment unit that is passive, meaning no electricity is used. You can see one of their panels here. It looks similar to a solar panel, and it can be retrofitted onto an existing septic tank. And the water essentially flows through it and is treated by algae. It's really exciting technology, and it's in the pilot stage right now. The first pilot's going to be in Waialua, and the inventor and the PI of it is on the call and can answer any questions you have later in the Q&A section. again, moving up to the community scale now, this is where economy of scale comes in, because you have 20 to 200 homes, for example, feeding into this. And if you separate the liquids and solids, like these advanced treatment plants are capable of, you treat the liquids to be used for irrigation, you treat the solids to be used for soil amendment, for example, in the form of biochar. And you can even create electricity from the energy that's contained in this organic wastewater. So this is a really neat scale that is unfortunately not being used in Hawaii a lot yet because of legal hurdles and financing models that still are being developed. But we at WAI are very hopeful that these can be, replacing 200 cesspools at a time and very soon here. And these are referred to as cluster plants, decentralized systems, or even package plants is something that these are called. And these sort of represent a middle ground between centralized sewer and individual wastewater systems. One way that these can be implemented, or how sewer can also be implemented through this method, and this is a mechanism on the county level, it's called either sewer improvement district. That's one mechanism, and the other similar mechanism is community facilities district. And this is a legal method defined in the laws of each county, and we put together an informational document how they exactly work in each county. And when these slides are distributed, you can just click on this link and you'll have access to it on the top right. But all you have to know about it right now is that it's a way that not only homeowners can get together and have a fair, everybody pays their fair share to upgrade the entire community, but also that's a great way to get possible funding from the big infrastructure money coming from the feds very soon here. So that could be a great mechanism to upgrade a whole community and solve these infrastructure challenges together. One technology partner that we have on the community scale is Cambrian, also from the mainland. They provide containerized treatment plants that can be just put on a concrete slab above ground, really easy installation. And essentially, they are great at cleaning the water to irrigation reuse levels. And why we're so excited about them is because they provide this model without any upfront cost to the community. They bring their own financing, and then the community pays per gallon of wastewater treated. So that it removes the capital expense in the beginning. And this is sort of a graphical model of what they call the Weepa, Water Energy Purchase Agreement. Community produced wastewater pays a monthly fee, and in turn, where the wastewater treatment plant is sited, you can use the reuse water for irrigation, and it's really a great win-win situation for everybody. And on the solid side, we partner with a company also from the mainland called Biomass Controls. They produce biochar from wastewater sludge. And that biochar is really an incredible material that can be used for filtration of water, stormwater, for example, or as a soil amendment. And it really captures this carbon that we don't want in the atmosphere, we want it in the ground. And this company is really good at producing that. And they produce a type of circular economy as well, where the carbon, instead of methane escaping in the landfill and dirtying up our atmosphere, we keep it in the ground, and it even produces electricity. And I'll kick it over to Stuart to explain how it all can come together on the community scale.
Great, thank you, Yoko. And I'll take a breath with you all. This is a lot of information that we're sharing with you. It's a Poop 101 course accelerated. And so you're getting there's a lot of factors going into this. But just to step back for a second, our goal is to take Hawaii, which is kind of in last place since we have the most cesspools per capita, and we're the last state to ban them by decades, and really transform the state into a leader. And we have that opportunity, especially we're kind of at this historic moment with the passing of the infrastructure bill. And we have the possibility, which this slide conveys, to do 100% recycling of all our liquids and solids. And with the Red Hill incident now and the closing down of one of our largest well areas, we're going to need to conserve water. And so the more we can recycle that water and use it for irrigation, get it back into the aquifer, the better we're going to be. And so we've partnered with these two companies that Yoko just told you about, that we've literally looked at scores and scores of companies, and they've contacted us from across the country and around the world And we just vetted all of them, and we've come with the ones that we presented you that we think are the very, very best, and are also invested in coming to Hawaii and really making a difference. So we have this opportunity through Cambrian and biomass to recycle 100% of the liquids and solids and really get them back into the land and use them for irrigation and soil remediation. And they're also a carbon sink. So they will help the state reach our carbon neutrality goals. So it's really exciting. We've been using the same kind of outmoded systems, sewer systems and treatment systems for decades and decades. And, even the sewer system is, like a century in its concept. And we have a chance to do something really different now, which is very exciting. And now to move into an area that I'm sure most of you are concerned about is, financing. And that's something that we're really taking a deep dive into and trying to find as much as we can to help homeowners. Right now, the most reliable sources, that's been around for a while is the USDA Rural Development Grants and loans. There's 502 and 504. This is more for low-income households, and 502 helps qualify for loans, and 504 includes some grants up to $10,000, and we have, you can see the eligible areas that are here shown across the North Shore, and we can help assist with application. And the most important thing is that we also are looking for other sources as well. And with the Infrastructure Act, we hope that there will be more sources coming down the pike. And so that's another thing that we're really looking forward to, and we'll be glad to work with homeowners on.
All right. Thanks everyone for listening to that fire hose of information, and I hope that is helpful. And at this point, we're gonna take a pause and do our second part of our survey. So this is our second poll. This should be popping up on your screen right now. There are 5 questions in this one, and you need to answer all 5 to submit. So the first question is, what barriers exist for residents of Waialua to convert their cesspools? Cost of converting, construction impact on property, don't know how to start, or don't feel that it is important, or none of the above. Are you concerned about human health and environmental problems posed by cesspools after hearing this presentation? Yes, no, or need more information? Number 3, what value would be the biggest motivator for residents of Waialua to convert their cesspool? A clean environment, public health, improved property value, to follow the regulations and be law abiding, or none of those? And 4, a typical cesspool conversion costs around $35,000. How much would you be able to spend on a cesspool conversion if financial aid covered the rest? And this is an anonymous poll, so you can just give your best estimate.
So we would love to see as high participation as we can possibly get. So if you, we actually do use these numbers, and it helps us when we talk to legislators. So if you guys could just take some time to jump in and do this, that would be greatly appreciated, because the information is valuable. And we can look at the chat while people are filling this out. But
and Stuart, I just want to say the last one, it looks like the text got deleted, but that question is asking what is basically your primary concern related to sewage pollution. And if that's swimming, its impact on fishing and traditional practices, its impact on drinking water, its impact on coral reefs, or if you don't have concerns.
Great, thank you. And as we're waiting for results to come in, I responded to, I think that's Bob, who said, what kind of systems evaporate the liquid waste, and clarified that it doesn't evaporate the liquid waste, it just through, through different processes, it can take it all the way up to, you know, from anywhere from R3 to R2 to R1 water that can be used for irrigation. And then the solids, that process uses something called pyrolysis, which is a high heat, very, very low oxygen over time. And so it keeps all the carbon in there, gets rid of like 100% of all the pathogens, and, you know, over 95% of any contaminants of emerging concern, and PFOS, which the EPA is really focused on, these chemicals. And so it's really amazing. It comes out looking like coffee grounds and is, you know, virtually odorless. And those can be used as a soil amendment or for filtration. You know, they can be put in socks and put in front of storm drains and remove a lot of the heavy metals and contaminants that would go directly into the ocean. So there are a lot of uses that you can do it, and for odor control and such.
All right, thank you all for those who have filled out the poll. I think we'll go ahead and share the results here. So it looks like we have the cost of converting as the biggest barrier for cesspool conversion. And yes, VAI is well aware of the challenges with cost, and we are working on that. So yes, we hear you that is a big barrier. Construction impact on the property is also an important barrier. So we're working on finding systems that are, you know, have a small footprint, working with the DOH to try to reduce the footprint of some of these systems based on their ability to treat water well. Most folks are concerned about the health and environmental problems and are mostly concerned about public health and a clean environment. So I share your concerns. And thank you for answering about how much you'd be able to spend on a cesspool conversion. That helps us as we're trying to shape legislative bills and figure out how we can structure some grants and loan programs to help residents with this process. And finally, drinking water is one of the really big concerns. So thank you all for your participation in the poll. And let's see. Oops, sorry about that. Okay, I think that should be closed now.
Yeah, thank you everyone for participating in the poll. And we did mention in the chat, but we will be sending out the presentation so that everybody can have it for future references. And this is just a slide with some next steps and helpful links. So the first one here is if you're interested in starting the process of converting and you want to receive updates from VAI and about possible funding, go ahead and click on that link there, the tiny URL. Our website is listed as well. We also put the USDA website to access the loan applications, and then a few other helpful links there as well. We can go ahead to the next slide. And with that, we're going to start our Q&A. So we had a lot of good questions in the chat, which we will address. And if anyone else has other questions, please feel free to go ahead and ask them.
All right, and at this point, we can welcome our other two distinguished panelists, along with Representative Matsumoto and Senator Riviere, Dr. Roger Babcock and Ryan Ward. And Ryan, like we mentioned before, is a licensed engineer and contractor who lives in Waialua. And so we're fortunate to work with him. He also represents Cinderella and has helped with that distribution. And we've gotten more than 20 distributed across the island, which is exciting, just in the last year.
I have a question.
Yes.
Yeah, if you're in the water every day, 6 days a week for swimming purposes, for exercise, and you're, you know, out there for a half hour swimming with your doing your breathing while you're swimming, your water's getting in your mouth, how dangerous would that be? Because I use the ocean to get my physical exercise.
Yeah,
Wailua area.
it's a good question, Alden. You know, one of the rules of thumb that we should definitely kind of re-emphasize is that, after a heavy rain like we had a
Right,
few weeks
recently,
ago,
yeah.
yeah, those are, you do not want to go in the water, especially if it's a first flush. If it hasn't rained in a long time and you get a heavy downpour, that water is going to be very toxic. It's going to have all kinds of contaminants, everything from the streets, from, yards, fertilizers, pet waste, rubber, the chemicals, heavy metals that come off of tires, and just everything in the streets. And so, and lots of pathogens and waste from, wild animals as well as pets. So,
This last week has been okay then.
yeah, if there's, one or two consecutive days of lots of sun is the best disinfectant. But, when the DOH issues its brown water advisories, that's a good time not to go in the water.
And wait, is there a link you said you can get for that advisory?
Yeah, we'll put that in the chat.
Okay, cool.
And you can, you can sign up, and they send out information.
Right to your iPhone?
Yeah, right to your email. Yep.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much for answering that question.
Absolutely. Thank you, Alden.
I'd like to ask a question. May I?
Please.
I'm recently moved to Wailua, and hold on a second. I have some feedback here. I recently moved from Wailua from town, and during the COVID pandemic, and I love it here. But I noticed that the socioeconomic demographics of this community is very varied. But you also have a number of people who live below poverty. What is the strategy that you're moving forward that you would like to put into place so that you can have a fair approach to making this possible for the district? Because obviously there are some people who can't afford the full price.
Mm-hmm.
There are many people here who cannot afford the full price, and they will be stuck with an assessment. Many of them may not be aware or even be knowledgeable about what we're talking about, even a year to come. So I'm just asking, what might be a strategy in not only moving this forward, but making it fair to everyone who can and cannot afford some solution? Because this is a lot of information.
Mm-hmm.
That will be very difficult to distribute in a timely way. But thank you very much for listening to my question. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Yeah, and the equity question is really a good one, because we have to make sure that, this is a problem that affects everyone. And so we have to be able to make sure that we help those who can afford it, who might have inherited a house or something, or just don't have the economic means to do it right now. And so there are a number of bills right now, including the cesspool fee bill, which will help towards that. And then there's another grant bill for low to moderate income folks at the legislature right now. And so those are just two bills, just right off the top of our head, that we're working on. But then there's also federal funding that we're trying to bring into the state. And so as part of the new infrastructure bill, there's money that will go to, or it's a competitive grant, so nonprofits can apply for this to help out low-income folks. And so we'll be working on that as well. But it's a good question. Thank you.
And then we had a few other questions in the chat. So one of them, maybe Yoko, you can step in on this. How much land is needed to put in a septic system? Does it replace the area that the current cesspool is in? And then also along the same lines, what kind of systems evaporate the liquid waste?
Yeah, thank you, Jackie. A septic system is recommended to use or to be used on a land where there's at least 1 acre of space available per septic system. The reason for that is that the higher the concentration of these septic systems per per area, the higher the concentration of the contaminants will be as well. Also, septic systems should not be used if there is not a significant amount of vertical setback below the bottom of where the water is going to be disposed and where the groundwater is, or within horizontal proximity of, at least 50 feet from any water body. So all these three, vertical setback, horizontal setback, and land area, these three conditions are met almost nowhere in Waialua and Haleiwa. So conventional septic is not recommended anywhere in Waialua and Haleiwa. Enhanced septic can be discussed. There is like the three on-site technologies I mentioned earlier with extra filtering, extra aerobic treatment, or extra wetland treatment. Those things can work because they treat the wastewater better and they don't require as much of a footprint. In terms of construction, it's possible to have it in the same spot as your cesspool. The reason that usually it's not done that way is because if you do it side by side, you can construct the new system while the old cesspool is still functioning, and then you can switch it over within a minute, and you don't really have any downtime where nobody can flush the toilet in the house. But if there's a lack of space, then it's totally doable to do it in the exact same footprint. And in terms of evaporation, that's only really done on the individual toilet scale, where you do the Cinderella incineration toilets, they evaporate the liquid waste. But on any larger scale, that's not really being done in Hawaii as much. It takes a lot of electricity. It's possible in certain very, very, very rare cases, but most of the time we don't look at it larger than the toilet scale. Thank you.
And if we want, we can ask Ryan to just say a few words, maybe introduce himself, and any thoughts that he wants to share, and Roger if he's on the call. Ryan, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm not sure exactly what thoughts I would have. The
How
Cinderella
about you tell
toilet-
us about you also having your own wastewater treatment unit, and you're being a Waialua resident and your experience with that?
Oh, that's yeah. I can definitely provide some information on that. So I'm in the Cement City area. We've got 4 single-family homes on one very small lot. We have an advanced wastewater treatment. It's an aeration system that's about 25 years old now. It still works great. Uses very little electricity. It's got an air pump, and it's a really, really good, clean system. One problem we did have when I moved in here is it was not working correctly, hadn't been maintained properly. So we've corrected that, and now it's being maintained, and it's a really good system. I find that to be a great option for this area. Because of the small lot sizes and very little bit of land to use. I also found that the wastewater effluent, the ground, the sandy ground in this area definitely takes up a lot of water. So we don't have any issues with the leach field whatsoever.
Thank you, Ryan. And Ryan is really a star in our team. He's on our advisory board, and we use both his engineering chops and his construction, design, installation chops all the time. And we owe him really a big thanks for especially our pilot project. So thank you, Ryan.
And also, Yoko and Ryan, while we have you guys, we had a question in the chat from Denise. What are VAI's recommendations for near shoreline homes that, number 1, have small lots and very little space for passive treatments, and 2, are subject to sea level rise, erosion, and saltwater intrusion?
As Stuart likes to say, up and back. Up and back. You want to have your house and especially your wastewater system as far away from the shoreline as you can. 50 feet is the minimum in the code right now. You can be closer if you have a variance application, which is a longer process and requires very high levels of treatment. But yeah, have your treatment system as far away from the ocean as you can. And it is unfortunately the reality that, you know, coastline properties are on a ticking clock. The water level is going to rise, and the wastewater system is one of the first things to fail. So keep that in mind when developing, when constructing, when replacing your cesspool. Of course, you can have mounded systems where you elevate your disposal, but even those are a race against time. So it's certainly a big consideration, and engineering companies, local engineering companies are really good at providing the right recommendations, and we can put you in touch if you reach out to us.
And, you know, another thing, Denise, it's a really good question is, you know, as Yoko mentioned, sewering, laying gravity sewer is very disruptive to roadways, and, you know, throughout the North Shore where there are only 2 lanes, you know, it could be really just hugely problematic where there's already a lot of traffic. But there are other options where you can have smaller lines that connect to like a decentralized wastewater plant. So you have a closed septic system on your property away from the shoreline, and then that goes to, is pumped to another, connected to other homes. And you could use, you know, directional drilling and use, you know, sometimes PVC pipe that's only, you know, a couple inches thick and in circumference. And, you know, that could really help. You'd have to pump it to a site where you could have a small treatment plant, but these are the kind of decentralized solutions that we think, especially for communities like the North Shore, that we need to do. So I'm going to put this out there. I think one good thing that we might want to consider is if there's an area and a cluster of homes, you know, whether that's in Pupukea, which is, you know, in the no pass zone, which means you know, they're very cautious about the water, you know, because they're protecting the aquifer, or right near the coast. If we can get a number of citizens who say, we want to do this because it's going to be financially better, and then it'll be so much better for the environment and public health, we can work with these companies to try to set that up. And a sewer improvement district or a community facilities district can be set up in one of 2 ways. You have 50% of the homeowners who are interested and sign up and say, yes, we want to do this, or the city council can vote and say, yes, we've gotten interest from this community, we can do that. So I think, you know, that's a little more, it takes a little bit longer, but, you know, WAI is a nonprofit and we are just trying to help communities get through this process. And so we'd love to find a community that's willing to do that and start exploring it, and we can help set that up. So please let us know if you're interested, and, you know, maybe raise it with your neighborhood boards to see if that's something that they might be interested in.
We have more questions coming in the chat. I see a question from Mariko Miho to Senator Riviere and Rep Matsumoto. What are some things you would like to consider? You would like us to consider doing in support of your efforts, say in the next month or so?
You know, I think the most important element of this whole conversation now is for people to really be aware of it and start thinking, how are we going to get there? The financial considerations are enormous, especially for the folks who, you know, paid off their house years ago, and they don't have, you know, they don't have the resources to upgrade. And I'm concerned, honestly, I'm concerned about everybody kind of doing it on their own, onesie twosies. I'm not sure we're going to get where we need to go. So it would be my hope that each community, each neighborhood starts a discussion amongst their neighbors and start figuring out how and if they're willing to cooperate to come up with maybe a shared system. That creates its own hardships with association fees and ongoing maintenance. There is a system up near Velziland that isn't quite working as well as it should. It probably wasn't maintained as well as it was meant to be maintained. And I think it's been overloaded over the years as development is filled in. So the system is beyond capacity. So that's an example of something that needs to be done with concern. We got to build these things appropriately. And I guess my answer is that there's, as Stuart said, and everybody has said in this meeting, there's no silver bullet. We're going to have to chip away at it as best we can. And that starts with the discussion and the dialogue. And then hopefully, the government and the infrastructure funds can help a little bit, but it's too much to expect the government to swoop on in and give everybody free sewer. That's not going to happen. So we have to figure out how can we all work together.
Rep Matsumoto, it's TJ. I have a question.
Go ahead, TJ.
Hi, aloha. Thank you for your presentation, and I look forward to getting your presentation in my email. So are there do you folks know of any other companies that are providing this type of service as far as being able to convert or upgrade your cesspools before the 2050 deadline?
I might not be the best person to answer that question. I
Oh,
might
okay.
turn it over to.
I'm sorry, Rep,
WAI.
I wasn't sure who I was.
No,
who
not
was
a
moderating.
problem. We've been working with WAI. I know there are, oh, sorry, I have kids. I'm going to turn it over and have WAI answer that.
Yeah.
Mahalo.
Yeah, it's a good question. I'll jump in there. We are looking for any and every company that once we vet and we know that they're serious about helping Hawaii and not just looking to make a buck, and we're going to put people here. We're looking at companies literally around the world, as you can tell. We've got Fuji Clean from Japan and Cinderella from Norway, who really made a commitment to Hawaii. But yeah, there are other companies that we're looking at that have systems that, like we said, that won't require these big sewer systems, but smaller lines connecting them. And so we're really hoping that that will be a great kind of decentralized solution for communities like Senator Riviere was suggesting, because that is a way where instead of doing one at a time, and some of these will have to be done one at a time if they're remote and not close to neighbors, but when you have large clusters, it really does make sense to try to do a decentralized solution.
Thank you very much. So I should let you know, because you folks don't know me, but Senator Riviere and Rep Matsumoto know me. From Kaena Point to probably the hygienic store, about 10% of the local families that live in that area are my family. I myself, in my immediate family, we have 3 houses in Sunset Beach, and they will all need to be upgraded before, in order to meet the deadlines. So a lot of my family are looking to me to be able to help them make the best decision financially and otherwise for an upgrade. I have already reached out to another company, and Rep Matsumoto and Senator Riviere, I'd be happy to facilitate a discussion with this other company, because there are alternatives, and it doesn't need to break your bank. So as much as all the information that we got tonight from the Wastewater Alternative Innovations Company, there's still a lot, and I'm watching the chat. There's still a lot that homeowners need to learn about septic systems and cesspools. And if I can help facilitate that conversation, I'm happy to do it, because like I said, Rep Matsumoto and Senator Riviere, they know me, they know who my family is, and they know that a lot of my family will come to me to be able to help them understand not only the financing part, but also to understand the alternatives, that are out there in order to become compliant by 2050. So again, Rep. Matsumoto and Senator Riviere, if this is something that I can help facilitate, I'm happy to do it. And again, wastewater alternatives, innovation, why? We appreciate you coming out and sharing all this information, because it's even more knowledge for us to be able to understand everything that has happened. Most of you have my phone number already. I can certainly put it in the chat. Please, anybody out there that has questions, feel free to ask.
That'd be great, TJ. Mahalo for sharing that. And just to clarify, just so you know, we're an environmental nonprofit. So we're just kind of working on behalf of the communities. These other companies that we mentioned are just people that we partnered with that we think are really some of the best companies that are committed to Hawaii. But we would love to reach out to you. So if you can put your phone number in the chat, we'll set up a call. Mahalo.
And TJ, I was just going to say, TJ, as we go through how Stuart mentions that he partners, we can help pass on that information as well. Like you mentioned, Senator Riviere and I, we communicate a lot with the community. And so we'll be happy to work together and coordinate that information to get it out.
Yeah, and I would say that this is part of the process. I mean, again, mahalo to WAI Group for doing this research and helping provide alternatives for people. I think it's all hands on deck. So to the extent that TJ, you can bring in resources and people and figure things out for people, that's awesome. That's what we need. We need everybody to step up and try to be part of the solution. And so it's all hands on deck.
Thank you. And you both know that I will do what I can to help the community, because like I said, the majority, a good portion of that area from Kaena Point to the hygienic store is my ohana. And I'm happy to help not only my family, but also the community and anybody else within those bounds, or anybody else. It doesn't have to be in that community that may need, somebody to sit down one-on-one, or, I'm happy to provide that connection.
Yeah, Stuart, did you mention the website that you've put together with bringing contractors and engineers for?
Yeah, thank you, Ryan. That was a great reminder. We set up, and we'll put it in the chat, what's called we can't resist puns when you're in this line of work, called the Potty Portal. And so it kind of has all the answers to any questions that you might have about, how does this process work, and what do you need to do, and who are the people that can do it. And so, yeah, we welcome you all to just check it out, look into that, and then follow up with us with any questions that you have, because that's part of why we formed this nonprofit, is to really help homeowners, because it can be a daunting process. So thanks for that reminder, Ryan. Yes. And we put it in the chat, ycleanwater.org /potty portal.
And then one other thing, as far as the permitting and the process goes for converting, the first thing that you start with is hiring a licensed wastewater engineer that will design the system specific for your place and prepare the permitting documents. The good thing is that this is not I'm going to say it's a good thing. It's not a building permit. It's a Department of Health permit. And if you've heard horror stories about building permits taking a long time, what I've seen is the Department of Health is much faster. It's not a long process to get through the design and permitting process. And even the installation, a typical single family home installation should take average of 1 week to do the install. And then when they're done, you got to grow grass if you want. So not a long process in general.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ryan. And I know, Linnell, you had a question for Ryan. So if you want to jump in.
Yes, Ryan, you mentioned that you've lived out at the Wailua area for the past over 20 years and that you guys do have a system out there. Well, we also had our wastewater treatment plant installed in our yard, and that was over 20 years ago. And TJ, it has worked wonderfully. There's only been 2 instances where we've had to exchange or put in a new pump. I mean, but the pump itself was like over $1,000. But I figure for the $20 that we spent for over 20 years ago, an individual wastewater treatment plant worked really well for us. So this is 20 years later. So I'm sure the price is, short of exorbitant now. But for individualized systems, other than a septic tank or even a cesspool, the wastewater treatment plant had been successful with us. The couple of the drawbacks with that is it's because it's electrically run. When the electricity went out, therefore our system would shut down, which is kind of like logical, right?
Yeah.
So you would have to make sure everyone in your household knows how to just press the button to restart it, to get the system going again. And don't fail to do so because you'll start to really smell the system after that. And when it starts to go again, you are definitely going to smell it because it's swishing around all that, all that stuff.
Mhm.
So, and another thing, there were only 2 on the island, 2 homes that had this treatment plant. One was mine and the other was one in Kahalu back then. And it was a local company, but they went under for some reason. And the company's name was Aqua Pacific. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, Ryan, with that company.
I'm
And
not.
the first time that it went down, they didn't have anyone on the island to repair it. So that they called in someone from Oregon, and they also had to pay for his lodging while he was here to repair our system. So I'm sure the technology is much better now, and I'm sure they have people on island. So if anyone out there is going to do an individualized system, because you have to, like Senator Riviere said, the one here at Wailua, it's just overwhelmed, this plant that we have out here. So I'm glad that we did put it in, but yeah, the cost might be, but you know what? We have people from the legislature that's on this call, and maybe they could hit the state up for some money, that if an individual, a family can prove that they need this system put in, there'll be funds put aside for that. Not any Tom, Dick, and Harry can go ahead and access that file, but there would need to be, of course, qualifying markers on that. But I'm sure the state, I mean, if there's something that the state want us to do, then the state needs to step up and really help out the people on this island, in this state.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Linnell. We hope the state and the feds step up to help. We have less than 10 minutes remaining. Are there any other outstanding questions that we can answer? Either from the chat.
I have one. You guys came up with it. I saw somebody post the question. I don't know if you answered it, but is it safe to drink the tap water in your places here in Wailua?
Yeah, so, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I did drop a quick note in the chat, but I can talk about that a little bit. So I'm a resident of Pupukea, by the way. I should have mentioned that earlier. I'm on the North Shore also. And I did look at our Board of Water Supply reports for the North Shore from the most recent year. And our nitrate levels are about 4 milligrams per liter. The action limit is 10 milligrams per liter, which was, that action limit was developed based on blue baby syndrome, which is a syndrome that babies can get if there's too much nitrate exposure. But recent studies are actually also showing that levels of about 3.87 milligrams per liter are correlated to colorectal cancer and may also be correlated to bladder cancer. So we, sorry?
You just said 3.8 and
3.8 and ours was 4 in the last reading. So this could be this could be coming from agriculture sources or cesspool sources or a combination of those. I talked to Board of Water Supply. They're not allowed to like disclose the location of the well or anything like that. But so, both of those, both agriculture and cesspools will, potentially increase nitrates that are in the drinking water. So one thing that you can do is a carbon block filtration that will reduce the nitrate by about, I think 70 to 80% or something like that. And there's a few other types of water filters. You can just Google nitrate reducing water filters and it comes up with a whole bunch of different options. So that could, it's below the action limit. So it's not something that the state would address right now, but that would just for your own personal health.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Christina. That's based on the latest research. So, we could foresee a time when they're going to lower that level from 10 milligrams to under 5, just because this research.
Well, if it's 3.8 and 4 is what she's saying, I mean, that's already bad enough.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you for answering that.
Mm-hmm.
And Christina, there is also a question in the chat of if there was a way to determine how much of the enterococcal bacteria level is a result of feral animals versus cesspool pollution, seepage.
Yes. So with Enterococcus bacteria, you can't tell the difference, but there are other types of fecal indicator bacteria that are more closely associated with just human waste. And there's a couple different types. One that the Department of Health and researchers at UH have had some success with is using a bacterium called Clostridium perfringens. This is a different type of fecal indicator bacteria that is more closely correlated with human wastewater signatures. And then there are also the other methods that I briefly went over of using nitrogen signatures in algae, looking at the isotopic ratios. That's one way to tell if it's wastewater versus some other type of contaminant. And also Henrietta Delay's lab does research using pharmaceuticals. So those would only be found in human wastewater. And since I don't think the feral pigs are up there taking too much ibuprofen, I hope not, but. And it is actually a great, it is something that we are, looking for funding for to expand our water quality testing to include maybe Clostridium perfringens or some other human specific indicator. So thanks for that question.
And as we kind of approach the hour of 8 o'clock, we'd like to, just thank you all again. For coming out tonight, because as Senator Riviere and Representative Matsumoto said, this is really going to be a collective effort. It is all hands on deck, and we really hope that some of you will reach out to us, about this, because we want to work with individual homeowners, but also communities to find these solutions. And it really takes everyone's input, to move forward. And we are dedicated to making Hawaii a leader on this issue. And there are people across the country that we're working with because we're part of a national cohort. We were asked to join because they like the work we're doing. And so there are people who are like, we want to see Hawaii be a leader on this front. So we appreciate your support. And maybe before we end, we'll just ask the Senator and Rep if they have any final thoughts.
Well, hi, my final thought would be, now that we know this information, let's use it and let's continue to grow and work on solutions. And yes, the government is going to have to participate in this, but again, it's not going to be all handled automatically. So let's all be engaged and look for opportunities where we can find them. Thank you all for tuning in tonight. It's been I thought a really great presentation, and really happy to be part of this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Senator Riviere.
And also, yep, thank you again to WAI. It was so informative, and even hearing bills going through the legislature about cesspools over the years, this presentation, I've learned so much. So thank you. And I know the community did as well. I just wanted to reiterate, please sign up for our email updates. And also please email our office. You know, if you do have questions, if you have other questions later on, you go, I didn't get to ask that, we can definitely work to connect you and just to continue that conversation. And like Senator Riviere said, we all have to do it together. And so the more we can talk about it, the better we can do. And just the reminder to go look for those PDFs to get involved in the legislative process on a whole bunch of issues, but especially on these issues moving forward. So thank you so much, and really looking forward to talking to you more all as we go forward this year.
Thank you so much, Representative Matsumoto. And Senator Riviere, we appreciate your involvement in this, and we couldn't have done it without you. So yeah, look, we have our social media up there. We will be posting about upcoming bills and hearings that are coming up. And we really have seen just incredible engagement, civic engagement from people, the public, in the last 5 years. It's been amazing. We passed some bills that are kind of the first in the country. So we want to continue doing that. And it's a little complicated at first, it seems it, but once you get the hang of it, it becomes very easy. So we want to thank you again. And I'd like to end with a pun that, these are very important issues, and the most important reasons to support these sanitation improvements are, number one and number two, because that's, what we're dealing with, and that's what is going out into our groundwater and our surface waters, and sometimes our drinking water. So I hope you all have a wonderful night, and the ledge season has just started up, so we hope to see you online or submitting testimony. And we want to thank you again for all your input and questions.
Thanks, everybody.
Aloha.
Thank you guys so much.
Mahalo.
Hello, everyone.